Absolutely. Yeah. So Oliver Anthony, for those of you who don't know, Oliver Anthony, he was a backwoods backwoods man writing songs for his own enjoyment and sharing them with friends and family. And it seems out of nowhere he just blew up overnight. So a lot of you have probably already listened to his song, "Richmond North of Richmond." Super great song. I definitely recommend listening to it. I'm not going to play it for fear of a copyright strike, but I will go ahead and bring up what Oliver Anthony did next with his newfound fame. I mean, I think it was what, Thursday that he started blowing up. So we're literally talking. This guy has been blown up, millions of listeners, only for a matter of about a week. And here he is. This is from the Post Millennial. Oliver Anthony plays viral populist anthem "Richmond North of Richmond," reads Bible to massive North Carolina crowd. So this is one of those cultural wins that I was just talking about here. So I'm going to go ahead and just skip to the part where Oliver really begins addressing the crowd here.
So if I can do it, you can do it. Before we start singing, and I mean we, because I hope y'all are going to be singing too. I just had something I felt compelled to share with you. This is in Psalm 37, 12 through 20. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them, but the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend the bow, to bring down the poor and needy, to slay those whose ways are upright. But their swords will pierce their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. Better the little that have righteousness than the wealth of many wicked. For the power of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The blameless spend their days under the Lord's care, and their inheritance will endure forever. In times of disaster, they will not wither. In days of famine, they will have plenty. But the wicked will perish. Though the Lord's enemies are like the flowers of the field, they will be consumed, and they will go up in smoke.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. More substance from a backwoods guitar player who's now gone viral than most of the pulpits across America, unfortunately. I thought that was amazing, though. Just the fact that this man wrote a really raw, authentic song that really caught on fire in a matter of days. And the first thing he does with his platform is he pulls out scripture and he starts reading from what many pastors would be too scared to even bust open on a Sunday morning. I thought that was incredible. Todd, what's your initial reaction?
Well, as I've been saying on all these examples, how different has the church looked on these topics? Have we pulled our punches? Have we tried to use the nicest saccharine language possible to just meet everybody in the middle? Well, we tried all those things, and look where we are. How often have we busted out the imprecatory prayer, though? I mean, there's a recent, it went semi-viral. It might be older than I think it is, but I just saw it. But there's this study that people did in an elevator. Did any of you see this recently on Twitter? Where it shows there's a camera on a full elevator, and everybody in the full elevator is in on the experiment except for one person. And this person gets on the elevator, and everybody in the elevator is facing the wrong direction. Their backs are to the door, the opposite of what, is normal. So she gets on, and she just stands normally. And then the elevator starts going up, and it keeps stopping at floors. Some people get off, and then new people get on. They're in on it too, and they get in, and they stand the opposite direction. And it just shows over time this impact this has on her. And slowly, she's like a sunflower that's turning towards the sun, except this time she's actually turning towards the darkness. And she slowly starts to turn and face the other way because she's being shown a false gospel. And that's exactly what's happened with the church. They don't hear the real thing enough. And so they turn to faulty versions. And so when it comes to this, listen, there's a time and a place for imprecatory prayer. No doubt about that. But there's this fantastic speech. Look it up. I think it's a British colonel, 19th century. I think his name's Charles Napier. but he was stationed in India, the British during that time in India. But at the time, there was a tradition where if a man died, they would then burn the widow at that time. And they would say that you need to let us to do this as part of our tradition. And there's this fantastic quote where he says, by all means, you guys do your traditions and we will do ours. Because when we find such a man, we erect gibbets and we hang them by their neck. That's a version of imprecatory prayer. Like there's right and there's wrong. And I've heard your argument now, and I find it to be utter nonsense. And here is my counter. And I don't know anything. None of us knew anything about this guy named Oliver Anthony 2 seconds ago. But we're starving for this. We're starving for people to say, once again, there is right and there's wrong. There's light and there is dark. And right now we're living in a world where people of many, many degrees are telling us, if I don't believe a boy can become a girl, I'm the crazy person. Oliver Anthony just said, over my dead body. Enough. And here's God talking to you if you don't take my word. It's refreshing. It's beautiful. And yeah, it's a closed fist, but it's not our closed fist. It's a closed fist of God. And he doesn't suffer fools like this. And it's good for us to be reminded of that.
Well said. Adam, what was your initial reaction?
I mean, Todd said a lot. I mean, it's hard to beat what he said. I was just thinking about the song in general. Granted, I haven't looked at the lyrics like to completely comb through it, but it makes me think about what I keep saying over and over. We keep talking about culture and culture. And while we are facing some cultural changes, I think what we're being fed is a culture war that is not really a culture war. I think what we're actually dealing with is a class war that's being distracted with a culture war or the illusion of a culture war. We're being manipulated into believing that half the country believes that a boy can become a girl and vice versa, when most people don't actually believe that. I mean, that's why I tell people to go outside and touch grass. Do you talk to people? Do you have a job? Do you think the people at your job actually believe this? And maybe at very, very particular sectors of our society in very, very particular places, people are willing to lie to themselves and say false things, right? And then say it enough times and they believe it. But regular people, regular working class people, people who actually go out and work hard for their money, they don't believe any of this nonsense. Some of them never even heard this nonsense before. It's the illusion that the people who are of the upper class, who control the media, who are in these particular environments, they're the ones who have control over this message. They're the ones who have control over the false doctrine. And they're the ones who are making everybody else believe that what they're saying is actually true, that this is the new culture, and that everyone believes it. Now get on the boat. When in reality, it is the most powerful people in our society, is the people who go to these liberal arts schools, the Harvards, the Princetons, right? They're the masters of the universe. I remember Ben Shapiro talking about when he went to Harvard and they had this big sit down and said, you are the leaders of tomorrow. And they weren't saying it like theoretically. No, you are the leaders of tomorrow. This is the mentality of these people who believe that whatever they're being told in these institutions is gospel, and they are told to go out there and enforce it on everybody else. This is what we're actually dealing with. We're dealing with the upper class. We're dealing with the wealthiest who preach, don't get married. But guess what? They're all married, right? They preach all these things. They preach feminism, but they don't live like feminists. They preach all this stuff. Nuclear family is old, antiquated. Guess what? They all grow up in two-parent homes. Like they preach all these things to poison the rest of us, to poison us all, so we cannot compete for their resources. We cannot compete for their positions. That's what all of this is about. It's about power. And what I see is, as someone who's lived in multiple states, who's lived in rural, urban, and suburban, and I've been around people of all different demographics, immigrants, people naturally born here, they all want just about the same thing. They might vary on some approaches of how to get there, but they don't believe this junk. This is a very unique circumstance that we've been dealing with in the past few years, especially. They've taken off the mask and they've showed who they really are now. So the dribs and drabs of trying to infect society, they went full tilt on it. And the only reason we're talking about it now is because they've overshowed their hand. You know, they show too much. I use the analogy of when Facebook wanted to change their design and they just changed it completely. Everybody rejected it because it was too much at once. So they reverted back, and then every so often they would change a button here, a color here, and then before they knew it, it was the new design, and no one complained. And what happened was our society changed the design too quickly, and everybody noticed it. So now that they played their hand too quickly, they went full crazy on Trump and went even more ridiculous on the pandemic. It woke up a lot of people. And so now a lot of people are looking at what's the pattern? The pattern is these people are telling me what my life looks like because of my race, or what my life looks like because of my gender or my sex. And nobody else in my life I've ever met speaks like this. You know, that's the thing that I keep trying to tell people. Like, Twitter especially it's an ecosystem of outrage, and they want you to believe this narrative. They want you to put on that video. They want you to see a BLM riot and make you believe that every black person agrees with BLM. And I go around and I meet black people. None of them agree with this shit. You know, it's all these narratives. It's all these false narratives that they want you to believe so they can control you and manipulate you. So to go back to the song, I think he's echoing what every regular person, especially now, who is woken up, they see that this is all BS, and that the wealthy are the ones, the oligarchs are the ones who are trying to tell us what to do and control us. And it's always, always, always about resources and power.
Well said. Well said.
Whole lot there. Yeah.
Every war in my lifetime has been about resources and power. Every war. So why not a culture war, right? Why not the class war? It's about resources and power.
Fifth generational warfare too. We're no longer fighting with atomic arms.
I just want to briefly echo what it's absolutely intentional that Adam's talking. It's not a misunderstanding. It's not something that sooner or later, you know, everybody went a little too far and common sense will no, this is designed, a design demolition. And the level of contempt that those with power have over those, you know, whatever, white or black, regardless of your demographic, there's a certain group of people that wants what it wants. It views you as beneath them and or in their way. It's all by design. I think that's the thread that ran through everything I just heard from Adam. And if you learn nothing else from what you heard tonight, he's exactly right about this. It's not just kind of a moment in time where we all got a little confused and the pixie dust will go off and we'll wake up. No. We are part of a grand experiment. We're the rats. You have to decide whether you accept that or not.
Yeah. Well said, both of you. I completely agree. Michael, what was your thoughts on specifically like the verse he chose to read out and just Anthony's boldness in general? Bring us home.
Yeah. So in Anthony's song that's gone so viral, the Rich Men North of Richmond, it's not exactly a happy song. I mean, it's clearly a song of lamentation where he's just saying, man, our world is so screwed up. In fact, the bridge says, Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is, so it is. Sounds very dismal. And yeah. I think it's really unique and somewhat precious that he, if I can use that word, it's precious that he chooses deliberately to have, in the circumstance that he's been made so popular over a fairly dismal perspective, he pulls out Psalm 37 and he chooses to start in verse 12 with the wicked plots against the righteous, because that's kind of what a lot of his music is writing to. I like the message of this psalm, that the Lord will not forsake the saints, and that we're not forgotten by God. I like the verses that he's reading. I wish he read the whole psalm personally. And if I may, I'd like to read the first 8 verses of Psalm 37.
Go for it.
Because I think this applies even more so in the context of what he's saying, the outcry of people who are looking in the face of wickedness and trying desperately to find some sort of foundation to build ourselves upon. Psalm 37, starting in verse 1. Fret not yourselves because of evildoers. Do not be envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Trust the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your ways to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Refrain from anger, and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself, it tends only to evil.
Hmm.
I think that's the message.
See, brother, we've come full circle.
Mm-hmm.
We've come full circle. You mentioned the word dismal before, but not desperate. We started off talking about people who commit suicide, and we all agreed on some level that's where godlessness ultimately takes you. Mm-hmm. This man sang about dismal circumstances among people he know. But why isn't he desperate? Why isn't he part of that statistic? Maybe some people he knows are, but why isn't he? What did he do after describing it? He pulls out the word of God. That's the whole ball game. We aren't. None of us are fool enough to believe, if we have any understanding of history, both secular and biblical, that just because you believe in God, everything goes your way all the time. But the hope is that it's overriding all of that. It is the thing that governs all of that. This is what he's showing. Full stop. This is bad. I want it to be better, but it's not going to break me. It's never going to break me. Yep. Because God is my shield. That's the difference. That's why he isn't a statistic. That's why he isn't 6 feet under yet at his age. Because he's pulling out a weapon that is his guitar, that is the word of God. We all have the same avenues. I can't play it. I can't play a tune, but I am lucky enough to have a show. The 4 of us are doing it in our own way right now. New Jersey, Iowa, Kentucky? Is that it?
Yep.
Where the podcast is from?
Tennessee.
Both Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah.
Tennessee and Kentucky. So, listen, we all of us have an opportunity to breathe the air we breathe and live in the time that we have, whether we can strum a tune or not. He's giving like this. We aren't meant to be a statistic. We aren't meant to just be the product of our circumstances. We are created in the image and likeness of God. We need to start acting like it.